Okay, welcome to EGK 352 Aircraft Cabin and Information System. Right, today we're going to talk about, last week we talked about the external communication system. So today we're going to move on into the cabin to talk about the cabin intercommunication system. In short, CIDS. Okay, so first of all, we will talk about have an overview of what is this CIDS about, and then I will give you some examples in the two aircraft, because the aircrafts they have all different systems. Okay, so we can only cite some examples from these two aircraft, A380 and A320. Okay, what is the purpose of this intercom data system? Okay, first of all is to actually establish the communication, functional control, testing and monitoring of this cabin support system. Right, so we all know that it's very important for the communication to happen inside the cabin for many ways. The first of all, for let's say for the flight attendants, okay, for the flight attendants, we need to use the flight attendants panel, or the FAP, or the mini-FAP, or the cabin handset to do communication between herself and the passengers, or to the flight crews. Secondly, for the cockpit crew, the pilots and the first officer, we need to use the audio control panel and the cockpit handset to communicate to the aircraft tower, or to the flight crew, or to the passengers. And for the passengers, okay, there is a communication to use for, like, for example, you need to call for the flight attendants, right? You want a drink, or you want some information or things, or you can actually speak to the passengers information systems, okay, through different ways. And lastly, for the maintenance crew, right, we need to use this CIDS, things like the interphone jacks, okay, to do communication when he's doing a work on the ground, repairing the aircraft, okay, to communicate to the people inside the aircraft, right? So if you look at these two pictures here, the one on the left is the FAP way back in the 1987, comparing to the one that we have now. Okay, you can see that a lot of things, the presentation wise, it is much improved. Here's a look at the video of how the lighting of the cabin can be so different using the system. Okay, thank you for watching. Okay, now, so this is an example, okay, of this system architecture of the CIDS. Okay, this is the block diagram. You need to know how the different components are interfaced with each other. Okay, just a brief idea here. So these three are the CIDS directors, right? Why there are three? Because two of them are redundant. So one of them is active. So if anything fail on the first one, the other two will take over. So they're connected to, interface to the cockpit, right? To the aircon system, to the cabin support system, right? And then to the passenger related functions and crew related functions through this DEU A and B, okay, which we will cover on later. So let's talk about the director first. Okay, so there are three directors. They are wired in parallel. Okay, if one is active, the other two will be on standby. All right, this is always the case. Even the generators will have two or three. In case one will then fail, the other two can take over. So what does it do? Okay, this director actually controls, and then it operates and monitors the passengers and cabin crews, related functions, and cabin support system. Okay, as mentioned before. So this is the main, the brain of the CIDS. Okay, so it's connected to the cockpit control and indicator, right? And in dedicated control panels such as the FAP and the optional mini FAP. Why is it so? Okay, so it is for interactivity to the cockpit and cabin crew, and it's also connected to some aircon systems, and then also to make an automatic activation of some CIDS function. Okay, we will go to that details later on. Okay, so this is the FAP, okay, or the flight attendants panel. So what does it do, right? It allows the cabin and maintenance crew to control and monitor in the whole cabin, right? So it not only indicates, it also do some control. Indication is through the showing of the LED over here, right? And control, you can actually use a touch screen to control the parts, maybe turn on the lights or things like that. So there are at least two touch screen FAP installed, one in the upper and one in the main deck. Okay, it can be up to 10 FAP depending on the type of cabin, the aircraft. So there are also some mini FAP, and this mini FAP are used or to control certain zones. Okay, and these are not must-have, but these are optional. Okay, so now we talk about this DEU. What is DEU? DEU stands for, is actually decoder and encoder units, and there are two types. Okay, type A and type B. So this DEU is actually between the directors, and the DEU A is between the directors and the passenger related function here, right? So what does it do? It controls the cabin lightings and the passenger service units functions, such as the passenger individual lightings, passenger signs and calls, and the loudspeakers. Okay. The DEU-B is also connected between the directors and the cabin crew related functions. Okay, what are they? Okay, there are a few of them. So later on we go into detail the ACP, AIP, and the AAP. First of all, we touch on the so this is what we talk about the cabin crew related equipment. So first of all, we talk about this area core panel. So this area core panel is located at the cabin ceiling above the aisles here. Okay, maybe one at the forward aisles and one at the aft, the behind. Okay, and it has some indicator lights there. So the indicator lights there is not for decoration. Like for example, if the pink steady or flashing, okay, it is actually the crew communication. And if it's a blue steady, that means there's a passenger call, right? If the toilet or the laboratory call, okay, so there is a amber steady, right? And if there's a smoke detection, okay, if you jokers go and smoke in the toilet, it will be flashing amber. Okay. Then we talk about this AIP. Okay. So this AIP is actually the attendance indicator panel. Okay, so it is located at the attendance station. Okay, so what it does is that display and call information for passenger address. Okay, the PA system, right? And interphone and PAX. PAX means passengers. So they also display additional cabin system information like the laboratory smoke location. Okay, so if there's a smoke, it will indicate where's the location. Okay, so something like this. All right, passenger 25R. Okay, where the seat location. So there will be some indication here. So this is the optional AAP or additional attendance panel. Okay, so this one here allows the attendants to control certain cabin support systems, right? So say for example, this one here, this example, this is the aft crew. Aft crew means the behind at the back crew station. Okay, so there'll be a crew sitting here, so there'll be some AAP here to allow the crew to do some control, okay, of the zone. All right, and then it also has a handset, okay, for the passenger address and interphone functions. Okay, so in a nutshell, okay, this diagram over here actually do a summary of all the things that it does for the CIDS. Okay, first of all, it does communication. It does indication. Communication is the two-way talk. Maybe it's communication here means verbal talk, audio communication. Indicator functions. Control function means you can actually control the lights, can control the aircon, right? Of course, you cannot control the ejecting of the passengers out of the aircraft, and it also does some programming functions. Okay, we'll talk on that later on. So what kind of indication can you do? Okay, over here there's a series of them. Okay, I'm not going to go through every one of them. So indicator like the smoke detection, where is the location of the smoke? Okay, emergency light, power failure or eyes protection and things like that. Then what can you control? Okay, so these are the series of things you can control. You can control the lights. You can control the lighted sign. You can control the passenger call. When you call, you can actually cancel the call or things like that. You can control the in-flight entertainment, the aircon, right? And others. Okay, over these others here, you can do software loading, layout selection, cabin programming. Okay, we'll come to that later on. Okay, so these are the communication functions. Okay, so in the cockpit you can talk to the passengers through a loudspeaker, or you can even the cabin crew can actually do announcement to the passengers. So these are the cabin crew station, can actually talk to each other. Don't chit chat over there while you're doing your work. Okay. Then this is under the cabin interphone, where the pilots can also communicate to the cabin crew stations, selected cabin crew station. So now we talk about this service interphone here. Okay, so this service interphone is more for the maintenance crew to communicate to each other through this service interphone jack. Okay, if somebody inside the cockpit can also communicate to the service crew using the service interphone jack. Okay, you can also communicate to the cabin crew stations, right? So this main here is yeah. Then lastly, we talk about this crew signaling and alerting. Okay, so what does it do? Okay, so over here the cabin crew can actually use the FAP to indicate whether the area is ready or not. Okay, so this is some of the examples. That's an interesting video. So now we talk about this the next functions of this CIDS. So what are the indicators functions? So this one will give you a very good view of how they are connected, right? So okay, over here the cabin support systems, okay, they are either linked to the DUB or the ADCN. Okay, so what's the ADCN? It stands for Avionics Data Communication Network, right? And then it will go to the director. Okay, so the director is the brain. Remember that it's a CPU that's controlling everything, right? So under the indicating there, okay, it will use all these functions, the smoke detection functions, or the galley cooling functions, or the door and slides and things like that. And then it will actually send the necessary indication on the different panels over here under the FAP pages. Okay, so you will send out all the informations to the panel, right, so that you will have the indication on the panel itself, right? So under the control functions, okay, so over here when under the cockpit control indication function, right? So the pilot switches on and off the whatever thing, the controls there, it will go into the director, right? And then it will go to the DEU A, and then it will actually goes out to the necessary passengers related functions, or the cabin related functions, or the cabin support systems. All right, so these are the controls. Maybe I put a pointer there. So these are the controls. It will go into the director, and then out comes the output of the control. So the last part of this CIDS we are talking about is the programming functions. What are the programming things you can do? Okay, not the Python or C programming. Over here, what the programming we are talking about is that you can actually do a software loading. This can only be done on the ground, or you can do the layout selection. Okay, you can actually select how you want the interface to look like. And the cabin programming, okay, to actually improve the looks or the operation of the software, or the loudspeaker level adjustment, okay, and then the FAP setups. Okay, so some of these functions can be done on the ground only, and some of them can be done while you're on the flight. Yeah, so over here it gives you a better view of the different programming things they can do, right? So, as I mentioned, okay, so this is the way you can actually do the software loading, and the layout selection, or the cabin programming, and so on and so forth. Okay, thank you for listening. So stay tuned for EGK 352 for the next lecture.